back, and we have a very special guest with us for this portion, Mr. Alan Goldman. Mr. Goldman, how are you today, sir?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on the program.
It's a pleasure to have you. Do this for me. Introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
Well, I'm really two persons. One is the one that went to a fancy prep school here in the East, Horace Mann School, and then to Harvard College, and then to Harvard Law, class of 82. That makes me 67. Awesome.
You've written this fascinating book. It's called Reflections on Mountaineering, A Journey Through Life as Experienced in the Mountains. It's the 5th edition. This is something I find quite interesting in doing my research. Collectively, the poems constitute a meditation on the nature of reality itself as perceived in the context of exploring the limits of human understanding and achievement. And then you say, you learned in your more than 30 years of climbing that many of the same moral issues that confront us in everyday life are present in the high mountains to a certain degree. Talk to us about this fascinating book that you've written.
Well, I wanted to demystify mountain climbers and the mountains in general for the general educated public who may feel that this is an esoteric subject which they can't understand. It's above their heads. It's not relevant. It won't add anything to their lives. Well, just the opposite is true. My poems are written not as you might think, as most poetry is these days, in a very difficult to understand way, but instead in a narrative style with some moral or life lesson added to the poem, the thing that I discovered upon reflection of the activity after it was over. And I feel that I provided a glimpse into this subculture world of climbing for Easterners who have had no exposure to it. And that I've been privileged to be able to have one foot in both camps and to compare and contrast their meaning for each other.
That's powerful. You've written this fascinating book. Something that captured my attention, Reality and Dreams, Being and Nothingness. What is a mountain's meaning for mankind? Talk to us about that.
Well, the very first poem in the book is indeed entitled Being and Nothingness, which is also the title of Jean-Paul Sartre, the famous French existentialist philosopher's chief work in the field, published back in 1943 in occupied France. I maintain that the climber, by the mere fact of his placing his foot on what had been an undifferentiated pile of snow, rock, and ice, which, after all, that's all the mountains are. But by placing his foot on it and putting up a root on it, he has transformed it. He has imputed to the mountain human meaning. He has infused it with the stamp of his own individuality. The way I put it in the poem itself is that I have a talking mountain. You'll have to excuse the poetic license. The mountain says, "My summit shimmers with an unearthly refraction trembling from your evanescent embrace, reflecting your stamp of individuality to create the ultimate existential act of impressing meaning out of nothingness." The general idea is that mountaineering creates something out of nothing, a role that previously had been reserved to God alone, known as ex nihilo in Latin, out of nothing. God simply spoke the world into existence. And This is not the domain of man. Au contraire, the existentialist philosophers believe that human beings are capable of creating meaning, human meaning, out of what otherwise would seem to be an inanimate object, just as well as God could in creating it in the first place.
That's powerful.
We connect it to human experience, and the ups and downs, excuse the pun, in climbing do indeed reflect a kind of metaphor for life, the ups and downs in life, and how one deals with the trauma of defeat in the mountains is just as important, if not more so, than when you're successful. And that's true in life. Well, there's a great deal.
It's powerful, I'm saying, because what you're saying is that you connected mountain climbing with life on an everyday basis, and so the reader is going to be able to glean some things that they can learn from these very valuable poems that you've written that they can apply to their everyday lives.
Well, exactly. If you take all you need to do to verify that assertion is take a look at the Amazon page for the book, type in Reflections on Mountaineering, and read all the verified purchase. That means I didn't give them the book because they're my friend and tell them to write a good review. But total strangers who spent good money for my book have said the same thing over and over again in at least 63 or 4 published reviews. They've all said that the book did connect them, did touch them in a very real way, and it brought to life to them the struggles that mountaineers face every day. But I did want to demystify that. I wanted to make it clear that mountaineers experience the same moral quandaries, the same dilemmas, the same hard choices that people do at sea level, only to a sharper degree, because so much more depends, immediately speaking, on doing the right thing in the mountains, because there's immediate the mountain will rebuke you, to put it mildly. If you do something wrong, you immediately get a feeling for that, and you correct it. It's not unlike, this phenomenon, which is known as flow, is not limited to mountaineers. It crosses many disciplines, medical, legal, businessmen. For instance, a doctor performing a heart transplant. When he sticks his hand up and says, retractor, some flunky puts a retractor in his hand. And he never takes his eyes off the patient. He's totally immersed and engrossed in what he is doing.
Let me ask you this. You talk about here, I have something, you say, awe and wonder, my soul lures me higher. Talk to us about that.
Well, that appears in one of my poems, that there is an ineluctable, irresistible, let's put it that way, an irresistible draw that the mountain has, almost like gravity itself, to go on and proceed and not let yourself be blocked by obstacles that might appear to be the immovable obstacle. The mountaineer knows that there is no such thing as the immovable object because he is the irresistible pressure. They by definition mutually exclude each other. Either one is or it isn't. And mountaineering today is very much akin to what you would get on the lecture circuit from speakers about self-actualization, self-realization, releasing your potential, coming to grips with the ultimate purpose for which you were created. In the mountains, you come into contact with what you feel is the ultimate. You're tested. Your limits of effort and endurance are tested to the nth degree in the mountains, and some people can hack it, and others cannot.
I'm sure. So you're talking about not only the physical challenge, but there's the emotional and the psychological challenge that's also involved with mountaineering.
The most important, the mental blockage in your own mind. I've received testimonials privately from readers saying, who, in my opinion, I'm no doctor, but from reading what they wrote, they were in a state of what we call hopelessness and helplessness. And they felt they were incapable of taking any step to climb out, don't mind the pun here, to climb out of their depression. And they didn't know how to begin to climb out of their depression. Yeah. But this motivated them and said, wow. I made the observation, which, the Eastern philosophers have made since time immemorial, that the longest journey or the highest peak begins with the first step.
That's
if you
powerful.
Look at the whole in one go, you'll quit. You'll be intimidated. You're indeed fearful of the mountain. If you look at it from the bottom up, you want to turn around and go back. But once
so you have to take it one step at a time. We have 2 minutes left. So what I need you to do with these 2 minutes, I need you to disseminate to our viewing audience any contact information, be it website, email, and how they can get this powerful book that you've written. Take about 60 to 70 seconds to do that, please.
Well, first, to get the book, it's available widely on the internet by any online seller. Amazon, just go to the Amazon page and type in Reflections on Mountaineering. Make sure you get the 5th edition revised and expanded with addendum. That's 148 poems. What's unique about my book is that it's not a prose novel where you have to remember who's doing what to whom when you put it down. No, it's episodic. Each poem is self-contained. Although it's true, there are themes that pervade all the poems. So they can get it from Barnes & Noble, from many sources. And the second part of your question is what...
Yes, 30 seconds. If there's a website or email address for you, 30 seconds.
Yes. Well, the shorthand is that I do have an elaborate website compared to others.
Okay, give it out, please.
Mountain Reflections, plural, one word. Mountain Reflections. At art, that's the domain name, .com. I argued with Wix.
Okay. All right. We have 15 seconds. So we want to thank you. 15 seconds left. Thank you for the information. Thank you for the insights into mountaineering. And we want to thank you for being our guest today.
Well, I do appreciate the opportunity to disseminate some of the thoughts in the book and to clue people in as to where to begin. And it's a journey they have to take themselves. They have to take. Everyone says the trite cliche, you climb your own mountain. No one can climb it for you.
Thank you.
Not even your guide.
Back this to you. Yes, sir. We're thankful to have you with us. I'm Dr. Larry Carnes. We've been honored to have Alan Goldman as our guest. Reflections on Mountaineering, a journey through life as experienced in the mountains. Remember, the 5th edition. Remember to join us again right here for Books of the Month. And always out love, out serve, and out forgive each other. Thank you for joining us.